Hey everyone, my name is Poisonblade and I hope all of you are having a great day. And for today's standalone build, I'm going to go a little bit closer to home because I'm going to be building a German styled inn, and more specifically it's going to be a German styled inn from the region of the Black Forest or Schwarzwald, which this is the only time I'm going to say a German word because honestly my German would be considered an offense to every German speaking person on the planet. English is manageable, but German is just, when it comes to me, it's a lost cause for me. I can't speak it for the life of me. But the inn is also going to have a wolf habitat attached to it because I wanted to include a story, and why not make this like the upgraded version of Grandmother's Cottage from the fairy tale Little Red Riding Hood, because I like to include a story with my builds. But anyway, with that being said, let's get into today's build. So I never really thought I was going to build something like this, but one of you guys actually suggested this in the last video, which thank you, because I want to sort of push myself out of my comfort zone when it comes to building with these standalone builds, because most of the time I'm going to somehow go into a more like Grecian / ancient Roman style of building. I mean, with Gan al-Bashar I also went to Byzantine, which has a lot of like Roman and Grecian influence. So it's actually kind of great for me to just build something that doesn't have any of that. And then, well, let's just say the Black Forest region, like the area, I looked up the architecture, and yeah, most of it is not that hard, it seems, to build. But the roof is something different. And I am going to say the roof you can probably build out of just basic standard pieces. I tried that here just to kind of feel on like how is it going to look, because yeah, the roof is interesting because it's not like a standard roof. It has this sort of cap on top, and then it tapers in towards the walls at the ends, like the further you go to the ground. You can make this sort of building with basic roof pieces, but I wanted to have that like tapered end where, well, it tapers into the walls when you go down. So I needed to make it custom. And of course, I wanted to make a thatched roof instead of just normal tiles because, well, it makes it a little bit more interesting and it's a little bit more of a headache for me. And as I said, I want to kind of get myself out of my comfort zone, not go to any sort of like Grecian or Roman style, just so that I kind of learn more techniques on like how do I want to build this, how do I want to build this. This building actually combines basically all of the DLC packs so far, because the roof and I think most of the like stonework is the South America pack, and then most of the rest of the building is the Arctic DLC. There are a few pieces that are basics game, but yeah, this is basically just combining those two packs and using them for something that's completely without or outside of what should be done with those packs. But I'm very happy with my huge thatched roof. And here you can also see, or at least when it's finished, that Snow White is definitely German. Because this, while I was building this, just completely reminded me of like, oh, this kind of reminds me of the dwarf's cottage. And then I just couldn't see it as anything else. So it's kind of amazing that I still went for the story of Little Red Riding Hood instead of Snow White, because when looking at this I only see Snow White's or the dwarf's cottage because it's mostly just a thatched roof. And I think that's one, like a half of the building of like the dwarf's cottage kind of looks like this. The other half, which is sort of an attached thingy to it or expansion to it, which, if I'm correct, houses the front door. I don't know. I tried to build it for Khan al-Bashar, and then afterwards I was just like, nope, and never looked at it again. But yeah, eventually it worked out, and I'm so happy with my thatched roof. Like, this is just the sort of joy that I have when I start building something which I have no experience in building and then somehow getting it to work. And then I just get this like childish glee of like, I did it. Which I think, yeah, it's a little bit of like, all right, I've built in Planet Coaster for a long time and then Planet Zoo, so there's of course like a bit of like a skill that I've built up for building in Planet Zoo, but it still amazes me how like building things that I never built before and making them work makes me for some reason so like childish happy. And I'm very happy to have that still. Because the best way to, I think, get better at building in Planet Zoo and Planet Coaster, because, well, I'm just going to say it here, the building systems are completely the same. Which, of course, is, well, foreseeable because they're both in, like, the planet universe. But, yeah, experimenting with different styles is, I think, a great way to learn how to build, because you have to think outside of the sort of box that you built for yourself. So it's going to be weird when I'm going back to Canal Bashar and I have to do some Roman/Grecian style buildings again, because then well, now I just want to build a lot of thatched roofs. So let's face it, it's all about the thatched roof today. But I also make kind of an addition to the building, because this is sort of just how I see Germany, which is probably a little bit stereotypical, but I wanted to have something with like the timber frames and such. And of course, it's also going to be a wolf habitat, so I wanted a place for you to also see into their like sleeping area. So the building that I built now, or the expansion to the building that I built right now, actually too small. It's going to be broadened just so that there's space for the wolves. But this just, I think, also helps with like the story of Little Red Riding Hood, where it's like the wolf who's inside the home instead of just on the outskirts of the building. Yeah, it's mostly like the reference to Little Red Riding Hood is just there's wolves, the inn is named Little Red, and that's it. I didn't want to make it too obvious of like, oh, this is the story I imagined. I wanted to have it a little bit fake so that you could use this building for whatever reason you want it. But there is this, well, you can also probably make this habitat for any other animal because it's huge. Yeah, I never can build a small habitat, it seems, because all of the habitats are like giant soccer field sizes. Like, I think that there are 2 walls in the habitat, or at least how I build it, just so that I can test out to see if everything is like, well, manageable and that they can walk around the entire thing and get inside the building to sleep. But yeah, it just said like, this habitat is way too huge. You have to probably have like a full-on pack to sort of fill out this habitat, which of course is what wolves do. They have a pack, but yeah, I for some reason can never contain myself and make all the habitats way too large. Also, this is just something I want to point out, but where the expansion attaches to the, well, primary building, where basically the roofs collide into each other, I did make sure that there was like this sort of, you know, you can see where it goes into each other, because in real life when you have this, of course it's 2 different roof types, because one is just normal tiles and the one other is thatched. So there should be like something in a way to divide them, but also make that transition, or where they attach to each other, a little bit more smooth and seamless, because it's very easy for, well, any sort of like leakage. And I mean, this building is supposed to be probably quite old, but I really just wanted to build a timber frame, because I mean, also the main building, I think on its own, for like the purposes that I wanted it to have, was a little bit too small for it to be like a you know, a very, well, not very, but just a big inn. And yes, I wanted to have like a beer stall or something along those lines, but well, we'll just pretend that the juice stall is a beer stall or shop, because sadly we don't have beer or wine stalls in Planet Zoo, which, I mean, reasonable. It's not really supposed to be a game where, well, yeah, most sushi they don't sell. Now that I think about it, it's the one of the zoos that I lately went to did actually sell beer. Yeah, that's the Dutch for you guys. Well, no, it's not the Dutch. It's just, I think that one-off zoo. But anyway, so as you can see, I made the building a little bit bigger because, as I said, it's going to have the wolf, like the sleeping area, the indoor section to their habitat, where if it, let's say, rains or if they need to keep the wolves inside, although I don't think they would really do that here because it's probably too small of an area to do that. But if they want to somewhat keep the wolves inside, then they would do that here. And maybe if they want to like clean the rest of the habitat. But I try to make sure that, first of all, the illusion of like this building being like a real historical building isn't shattered on the inside, so the timber framing continues on the inside as it probably should. And then I just made sure that the roof is also not shattering that illusion. It's mostly just adding a lot of like, oh, this is the support beams, and oh, you see the timber framing that's on the outside and such things. So this could be classified so far as, I think, my most realistic build in a way, because it's basically like they repurposed an old building to fit into a zoo. And yeah, let's just say that I also I had a larger idea actually for the habitat. A very large idea where basically the entire inn somewhat stood on an island. Or at least like a hill, and then all surrounding it is the wolf habitat. But I realized that, like, first of all, that's going to be way too huge. I already have an issue with making my habitats way too large. And then I just thought like, alright, let's do it on one half of the habitat, or one half of the inn, or one side of the inn. And then let's try and keep it a little bit more contained. So this is the way that I also completely separated the inn from the, well, habitat, but also from the rest of the area. Or, well, rest of potentially your zoo if you want to have this inn. I made just a huge stone fence. And I at first thought like, oh, the wolves are easily going to be able to jump over this. So that's why in some areas I made it specifically taller, just so that that wouldn't happen. But even on the lowest sections of this fence or this wall, they can't jump over it. Maybe the hitbox of these brick, well, stone pieces is larger than the actual visual of it. Or it's just a weird thing, because for me this wall is way too small actually for it to be realistic. But then again, this is the inn that's supposed to be like a transformation of like the cottage of grandmother from Little Red Riding Hood, so probably shouldn't worry too much about realism. But I mean, for most cases this is a still realistic building. The habitat is a little bit unrealistic with the fences. You know, you can still use it for a realistic thing, I think. And did I already say that I love thatched roofs? Because yes, I do. And I made the entrance to the inn also with a thatched roof, because, I mean, yeah, when I get something that I try for the first time and then I actually make it work, I just can't stop. Then I will just use it everywhere. I'm like, can I use thatched roof in Cayenne Albashars? That was a very incorrect sentence. Can I use thatched roofs in Cayenne Albashar? I already said I'm not going to speak any German because my German is basically non-existent and is going to offend every German-speaking person on the planet. But it seems English is also completely losing me. But anyways, this is one of the references to the story of Little Red Riding Hood, basically just the name of the inn. And I'm already going to say, yes, I think I tap into some stereotypes when it comes to this inn. I did try to make it very classy, but I mean, I think most people thinking of Germany can already see what I'm probably also going to build. But I'm going to just let that sit for a while. But I am going to talk about the next build that is probably going to go up on Wednesday. It's going to be a smaller build. It could either be a shop or an entrance, but both, it wouldn't really change too much when it comes to like the size and scale of the build. It's just going to be like, what is the actual function of it? But so far I've gone traditional Korean / Eastern Asian, and now I have built Black Forest Germany. Yeah, I'm not going to say the German word for it anymore, but I went there. Now I want to just do very modern. Well, not very, but realistically modern. Because, well, I go to school for, I think, urban planning / urban design. I think that's how you translate it. That means that I learn a lot about like, oh, you could use building materials in this way and you can do this and that, and basically I wanted to use that for a while, and now I am able to, because I'm not bound to build something that fits in with like Can al-Bashar. It can basically stand on its own, just like the Japanese macaques habitat and now the wolf habitat and the German inn. And for anyone who have thought about it, about like, I am going to build something stereotypical German, and yeah, it's a beer garden. Because, I mean, it's a German inn. Yeah, I'm drawing somewhat on stereotypes, but it just felt like the right place. So, like, if you have like a German area in your zoo, or like a Black Forest area in your zoo, then it would make sense to have a beer garden. Yeah, I'm just trying to dig myself out of a hole here, but I just wanted a beer garden. Or just, well, it's an inn, so it makes sense that there are tables outside, so it doesn't have to be a beer garden, but I built it with that in mind. Also, this is just going to be a little bit of like something that annoys me, but why don't we have an advanced move tool for the tables? I want to like perfectly align tables and benches and all of that, but we can't because there's not like an advanced move tool for tables, or if there is, I haven't found it yet, which annoys me, because you guys probably know by now that if something isn't like completely correctly aligned, that I am not happy, let's just say that. But I mean, I had to suck it up for every table that I've placed, which shows how many tables I've placed, because I don't think Can al-Bashar actually has that many tables. I don't think it has some, but that's basically just like, here are some tables. Now I'm going to go because it's making me anxious that I can't align it completely. This makes it sound like I have like some type of like, you know, obsession with like making things completely aligned. I am completely fine if it doesn't align, but if I want it to align, I can go very far on that. But yeah, so today's video, also I need to mention, this is a day late because, wow, I think the build speaks for itself on why it was late, because it took so long. Built a little bit of the actual wolf habitat. I built basically how it's laid out, and most of the build is actually just the inn, because of course that's the main thing. The wolf habitat is in that, well, not really a hole, but it's in that lowered area, and it's basically just a forest, so it's not that much special to it. but it's like the inn is of course the show stopping piece. And I did make it a little bit realistic with like the beer garden, because of course when it rains you need to be able to cover it. So I basically make some fake covers that I put to the side of the building. And then when it comes to like the plants, I have the tendency to just go wild, like just place the plants everywhere. But then I thought like, all right, if this is going to be a realistic style like place, the plants are not going to just be thrown into the ground. There's going to be some kind of like process to it to make it easier to maintain. So I basically just adopted this like square-ish or plus or positive sign style way of making these gardens, which is basically to just give every flower its own place. And that didn't last for long, especially with this place that I built now, because it was just so like blatantly obvious that there was like this pattern to it that I eventually just snapped and well, made it a little bit messier because I wanted to do that. So I am going to do that, is basically what I'm saying here. But then I also thought like, alright, with, let's just say in regards to the actual habitat, how am I going to sort of figure out how to make that work? And then I thought, alright, those alpine flowers that still somewhat look like they could be weeds or just like, you know, plants that you don't want in your garden. So then I thought like, alright, I can make it so that that's probably like a plant that grows here naturally, and they just, in the habitat, they just let it grow wild because it's a wolf habitat, so they want to have that wild side to the area. Yeah, I basically just made it into a flower garden because you know me, if I want to do something, I can't contain myself and go to the extreme for it. It's still a very fun build, and I'm still very happy with my thatched roof. I mean, that's the main thing of this build, it's just that thatched roof. Of course, also when it comes to realism, when it comes to the trees, try to make sure that they don't obstruct the view lines. But with that being said, that's it for today's video. So the next video is probably going to be a bit more modern style build. But again, very happy with the thatched roof, very happy with the entire building. And I hope I did the Germany Black Forest area proud. Hope all of you are having a nice day, and I hope to of course see you back in the next video. If you want to see more, then of course hitting the subscribe button and the like button is greatly appreciated. And I just want to thank you guys for watching till the end. So again, have a very nice day and bye bye.